Today's guest is Nirmal Gianwali, who is the founder of WP Creative, a Sydney-based website agency. Originally from Nepal, he moved to Australia with a laptop and an $18,000 loan and went on to build a seven-figure business. Today, he helps marketing teams turn underperforming websites into high-converting growth engines. So, Nirmal, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Drasko.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to dive into all of this stuff with you. So, I know just for context, for anybody listening for the first time, before you got onto the podcast, you had filled out an assessment that dove into what I call these stress drivers, right? These are patterns of thought, feelings, and action that negatively impact either your peace of mind, your productivity, or your delegation. And that assessment you completed. We kind of went through a little bit of the results offline. So I'd love to know for you to then contextualize when you went through that process, what came up for you, and then we'll kind of go from there with regards to how I can help you with those.
Thank you. That was really interesting assessment. I think never done that kind of assessment from the psychological point of view. And I'm a logical person, and I love visual and putting numbers and which is helpful for my brain to process. And when I saw that, I said, okay, that's so cool. And I went through that, which is kind of a reflection tool in many ways. And I went through those all, and then the way you quantify the impact, and that was powerful. And to go back and reflect, okay, these are the things I think I need to improve. I can improve. That's gonna change my life, others' life. And yeah, that was very interesting one at the same time, being here. Little bit nervous what
Yeah.
you're gonna find out. But at the same time, I'm very curious as well to see what we're gonna find out and how this is going to, I guess, help me to go deeper and find those, I guess, blind spot.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the nervousness is 110% normal. I think I just want to kind of, again, normalize that for you. The nature of this show is, the vulnerability aspect of it. So, if you're feeling like that, I just want to say, A, not only is that normal, and then B, also congratulate you on doing the courageous thing, which is, being on here in this way. So 110%, I honor you for that. And then also just for context, so you had gone through the assessment, which we will talk about, and the impact you're talking about is the assessment walks you through how to basically take what are, the stresses of essentially leadership, being a founder, CEO, all of the things you have to do, and quantify that in terms of, well, how does this leak into the business, right? So I call that profit and time leaks. That's
Yep.
the impact you're talking about. And as I always say, like these aren't values that you're going to find on your profit and loss statement, but they are very real in terms of how they actually impact the business, right? So just,
Yeah.
and we don't have to get into the numbers because at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. But what I'm looking at here is when I see your actual assessment, right? A lot of the stuff that popped up was around this kind of conflict between I am overworking and then I'm distracted. And then when it comes to my team, I have these qualities where I will avoid confrontation. I will pick up other people's slacks, etc. So those things on the surface seem like they are, on par or like we all kind of do them, but yet the magnitude of how we do them and how often we do them can actually translate to a lot of these profit and time leaks. So that's kind of like my reflection of like what's there. But I'm just wondering, how did all of that land for you? Like, what were your insights from going through that?
Yeah, that was, I think, very interesting. Look, there were a couple of things from the habit, want to be personal habit, what I'm doing, and I guess what I found is two folds. One is there are some of the habits we carry all the time. Like I've been always used to be an individual contributor, like a performer, and I had to do multitasking and go on. But now I'm in a phase where I have got a team. The team is smarter than me in the craft they do. and but I still lean to back towards the kind of the doer mode where I'm trying to do multitask and multiple things where I shouldn't be doing that. And that's the one thing I reflected, oh yeah, I need to, I guess, step up and just kind of focus on deeper thing. Um, and the other fold is sometimes as a business owner, you get distracted. You don't have a choice because there are problems. You need to jump in, and there are client issues. There are, let's say, team issues. You're onboarding someone. You don't have a choice. For example, now I am onboarding a couple of people, and I have to be there. I have to there to support to make them succeed. Otherwise, they won't succeed. So that's the conflict. And at the same time, I guess I want to sit down, focus on one thing, get it done, get into the deeper kind of focus mode. But I didn't have a choice. And so I am doing overwork, and sometimes I am distracted and don't lose the focus. So I guess one is the situation. That's what I found, and the necessity. Another thing is still the habit. I guess you can't make excuse. When you get a chance, you need to step up. You need to, I guess, improve that. And sometimes we forget that we have got a choice, but we just go default to back, old habit. So yeah, that there were a lot of reflection around that. Um, on the personal level, um, yeah, and the team level as well. I think I've been yeah, some of the things, I think another thing you mentioned that picking up someone's slack and those kind of things. And I was reflecting on that. Do I still do that? How often do I do it? I guess the strength, the spectrum of that is very low these days, but it used to be bigger in the past. And I was reflecting on why I was doing that when I was doing it, and, doing the assessment. One of the reflection was I came from like an individual computer, like a contributor, because I used to be a good performer, and then that's how I started the business. Then I started building a team. So initially I had to do everything, and I learned so many things, and that's why I started the business. I thought, look, I'm good at something, and I can help that skill to serve client and build a team. So I had to do that, and I used faster, and so kind of the habit. Oh, if I do it, I can do it faster. Um, that was the mindset. But now I have got a team who is, I guess this another reflection I was doing this year as well. I think that I'm in a position where I have got all the people, smarter people than me in a room. I'm not the smartest person, but sometimes I default still back to, oh, I can do faster. Rather than me trying to do faster, then I have to pause and hold, no, 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 I need to let it go. I need to help, let the team fail, which is sometimes painful to see. Let them fail, let them do it, let them try, let them fail, and let them come back to me with the lesson, which is, I guess, the happens in every moment. Like, oh no, this is the moment I have to when to wear her, I guess, the coach hat, leader's hat, and when to solve the problem. Sometimes you can't wait and just sit, let's say the site going down. You have to step up and say, look, you can't, no, 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 don't do that way. If you do that way, there's going to be a bigger problem. So those are the moments, I guess, being more mindful of those moments, when to step in and when to step back is something I'm learning.
Okay. So when I listen to you speak, right, like there's an obvious self-awareness and there's an obvious maturity in terms of your leadership. And it's kind of like that whole piece of what you just mentioned with regards to when do I let go? When do I let people make mistakes? How do I not meddle to like, make more trouble than they would just do if I left them alone? Like all of those things are on par with learning the objective skill aspect of leadership, right? And when I listen to you speak, at least in this context, I'm like, it sounds like you're right where you need to be. Like there's nothing that stands out immediately as like, oh, this is like an issue that we can zoom into, especially when you were saying about, picking up other people's slack. I used to do that more than I do that now. So what I'm curious then is, I mean, in many ways, kind of like what's present right now? Like what are the issues that are actually affecting you right now that if you extend that further, like what is it that actually
Yeah.
brings you here?
Okay, that's a good point. I think one of the first point I marked was overworking. That has been impacting personally and the productivity. Just to expand into more that, I guess again there are two folds. One is the I am used to of um, maybe workaholic. I have to accept that. Just curious. About what I'm doing, what I do, and then I just want to go deeper and I want to keep learning. Goes back to my own like my values as well, which is curiosity. I mean that's how I learned everything, and that's how I started business, and everything goes back to the same values. So which sometimes yeah can result into overworking because I'm curious about things, so that means I can get into rabbit hole and just keep learning and keep going into deeper because I'm very curious. And I overwork, but I don't feel like overworking when I'm really being curious about things that I want to be curious about. So I'm fine. I don't put that into overworking bucket. But what is going on in real like the situation right now is I'm onboarding. Let's say I'm building a sales function team, and I have got a two BDMs, which is amazing. Like they're really crossing it. They're doing well, but I need to be there to support them. So sometimes that means I have to do back to back meetings with clients, and so many I have to jump into those prospect meetings and so on, and helping the team, which is a lot of work itself. That's a necessity. As a leader, I have to keep doing this probably another 3 months, let's say, just to put that some kind of the timeline. So I probably have to do for 3 months, maybe 6 months. So that's the situation I'm in when I'm onboarding someone leader or someone in the business. I have to be there because everything is in my head, and if I don't do that, they won't succeed. And so then what happens is I don't have enough time to do my own thing. There are so many things. So that is kind of going back to then I end up doing overwork, which is a situational thing. I'm mindful that I'm doing overwork. But one interesting thing is if I'm learning something, if I'm doing thing that I'm curious about, I don't feel like work. And I feel this is a fun thing because I'm learning about new things. So I don't put that into overworking category. But if I don't have enough time to do that, and I'm doing things that I don't want to do it, but I have to do it, and then I feel like I'm overworking and I get burnt out at the end of the day because I'm kind of my mind is somewhere else, but I'm just have to do this thing. So that's my reflection. But if I'm overworking, like let's say 10 hours per day, at things that I want to do, I don't feel like overwork because it was fun. I had so much learning today. Oh, I did this, I did that. But if I'm doing the other side, which I don't want to do it, but I have to do it, and then I was like, I have like so much, I had so many meetings. So that's the one reflection. I guess there are two folds, but I guess that's the situation I'm in. Necessity plus my own curiosity, and yeah, which um, is maybe resulting that habit.
Got it. Okay. So it seems like there is curiosity is a natural gift, right? Like that is part of your superpower. It's how you learn all the things you learn, how you know all the things you know. Like it is part of the driving force of your success. Okay. So that's kind of like the one end of that. And I know this wasn't exactly what you mentioned, but I'm gonna kind of reflect it back and see if it lands with you. So sometimes, and I've said this on the podcast before as well, it's like our primary strengths, so in your instance, curiosity, oftentimes become our first distortions. So like the thing that we're really naturally inclined and good at is the first thing we distort into something that sometimes can work against us, right? So in this instance, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't use it in this context. It seems like sometimes I can get lost down the rabbit hole of curiosity because at the end of the day, that is kind of more fun because it allows me to avoid some of the work that I do, like that is part of the necessity of this particular chapter, right? So just curious, like, A, if that lands for you before we go into the other pieces.
I like that line. Yeah, that is That can be true. The reason is like everyone has a responsibility. As a leader, you have got accountability to support team and to make things work, to keep things in order as well. And that means biting the bullet, doing the tough work, which you don't want to do it. I guess that's the situation, but at the same time, is a that's the conflict, I guess, going into your head. Like, these are things. Um, it's still from that point of view. I look into from that point of view as well. The one bucket I look at is even though the work that has to be going on, keeping, house and fire and all these things. But it's still, there is another part, the visionary part as a leader. You need to keep exploring. You need to keep looking at other things that people are not seeing from the distance and find out what are the things, thinking about the future, what are the things you can do that is going to make a bigger impact as well, which I guess someone has to do it to lead, and someone has to figure out, for example, there is a new technology going on, maybe there is a new thing coming in, coming up, and so on. So yeah, I guess there has to be a balance how you do it, but at the same time, yeah, the machine has to keep running, the flywheel has to keep moving, I guess, to run the business, to sustain the business.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you're very aware of the chapter that you are in right now, which is like there is, the training that I have to do with my salespeople right now that necessitate me doing work that I don't want to do in this particular chapter. And I'm aware that the vision aspect of leadership, of being the CEO, is something that I have to find a way to balance with because that ultimately is going to be the North Star that leads the company to the next thing, right? So you're shaking your head. So I assume you agree with that reflection. And I guess the only other part that I would add to it is like, again, this all sounds very like you sound very grounded in how you speak about it. It sounds like you know exactly where you're at, where you need to go. And I guess in a broader sense, I'm kind of sensing like, okay, well, this doesn't sound like a major problem. It just sounds like this is part of the season that I'm in, and it's currently a hard chapter. So, what's your reflections with that before you even go any further?
Yeah, that's a good one. Look, I agree with what you said. A couple of things, the way I could categorize things is, for example, if I'm supporting the team member, I've got really amazing like the BDMs. When I'm supporting them, I don't feel like I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing. But the way I categorize it in business and on business, because this I think we're running 10 years now, and in the business to get to this point. And the way I categorize it in business and on business, as a founder, as a leader, I have to focus on business work to make a bigger impact. And if I'm doing in business work, which I feel like now I should be doing that, but I'm doing here, then it becomes kind of a pressure. So the training team, onboarding someone is part of on business. That's how I categorize. I don't feel overworked. I don't feel burnout from that. But if I'm joining a call, let's say for multiple, let's say prospect meeting, because I need to be there just to watch and observe, the team, and then give feedback and maybe support them if they can't answer. So then, which goes for 1 hour, let's say every call. And so then that becomes like a in business work, which is still supporting the team, but not the actual thing, which is kind of I have to be an active listener, observer, and I'm not doing anything, but I still have to do it and over and over and over, which is a seasonal kind of situational thing. It's not going to happen all the time because once they get feedback, this is the training part, like the onboarding part of the work. After 3 months, like 4 months, then they don't need me. They will be confidently doing that. But it's this kind of the situation I have to be there for 6 months to keep doing that, which I find it personally, um, yeah, um, stressing myself.
Okay. And hypothetically, is there somebody that could be doing that same thing, or is it really absolutely critical that you're the one? that does that
That's a good
particular work?
question. Yeah, I was on that seat for so long. Um, for that reason, look, one way I can think of is taking more risk, like for example, let them pill, and which I'm doing as well in some of the calls and see, look, run yourself and see how it goes, and then whatever problem you run into, and let them pill, let them figure it out, and then come back and we talk. But sometimes you don't want to take too much risk again, because that's the business. If they fail, they're not just failing for one thing because they're not winning as well. And if you're not winning at the beginning, then I mean, we're human. We want to win, and that's how we get reward. We need to get that dopamine quickly to feel getting supported, succeeding on that role at that company. So that's the kind of a conflict. I need to support them to make like help them win, get that quick dopamine. At the same time, I want them to fail so they can learn faster as well. So which is a kind of how to find the balance uh, is I guess maybe what I mean.
Okay. So yeah, I think that makes sense. So I want them to win, but at the same time, I understand they have to like lose in order for them to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm interjecting quickly and a lot at the beginning to ensure that they win. So, like you said, to get that dopamine hit, while also simultaneously understanding that I have to let them fail. And then I'm kind of in this resentful, well, maybe not resentful, but in this conflicted spot where I'm sitting here, but I want to be doing something else, and I probably should be doing something else. So, like, how do I
Yeah, yeah.
balance that? Is that accurate with regards to where you're at?
Yeah, that's kind of accurate. In terms of look, I think look, it doesn't paint the full picture because I still want to support them. I want them to succeed in the bigger picture, which is the thing I'm talking about. The bigger picture, the
Okay,
dopamine
so then,
hit
and
goes
then,
back to the
sorry I'm
bigger
interrupting
picture for
because
their
I
life.
think
Yeah,
there
yeah,
might be something here. That's the only reason why
yeah,
it's not to not let you speak. So,
yeah.
how do you define I support them? Like, what does support mean from the definition of you as the whatever leader, boss, owner to the employee?
Um, the definition of support for me is give them all the tools, knowledge, everything for them to succeed in their role.
Okay. So that's broadly speaking, and definitely I agree with that. So if you had to get more granular,
Yeah.
like in the moment that you are giving them all the resources, et cetera, you mentioned, does that definition still hold or does it change?
Um, it holds most of the yeah, supporting
Okay.
them.
So if you're
Yeah,
letting them
yeah.
fail and kind of bump around to make their own mistakes and learn, is that more or less or the same supportive as I'm there to ensure that they win?
Uh, that's I think look, the support, the definition of support. Maybe I won't feel like I'm supporting enough if I. The reason is I was in that seat for so long, and all the IP about that role, about the company is here. So I'm the only one person they can access to get that information. So until I transfer that information to them, then I feel I'm accountable for that,
Okay.
their success and that role, even for the company as well, because I'm in the delegation phase where I'm trying to, build a team who can take over, that person. So don't, if I completely let it go, I'm a business now, I have hired someone, I'm paying someone, I don't want to do this work because I hired these people, they will figure it out. And then if I do that, I think I'm putting more risk to the company and our rest of the team members as well. That means I'm still on that department. I'm
Yeah.
still the leader of that department, not just the company. So, for that point of view, I think my responsibility is still do the dirty work or the
Okay.
work, even though I don't want to be there. And that's why maybe I want to delegate. But I did. I mean, I could find so many reasons saying, "Oh, I did for 10 years. I'm the founder. I hired people. I'm paying." I could make so many excuses, but still, I have to do that until I feel 9 out of 10 they're succeeding. Without me, they can run the department, run the function, and make the company successful and make them
Okay.
successful as well.
So that makes sense. I'm just going to ask some clarifying questions then. So when you said, okay, I'm supporting them, part of your definition was I'm giving them all of the resources to succeed in that role. And it seems like a big part of the resources right now are in your head, right? Because like that's where you mentioned it's like everything's up here. I need to
Yeah.
transfer that out to somebody, and then I got to be 9 out of 10 sure that they're going to take that information that's in my head, apply it well. I can see evidence of that. Then I trust that the transfer can happen. Like, is that accurate as far as like the loop that you are running right now?
Yeah, that is like a part, I would say partially accurate because they are already expert in their field, and we're not going into detail of this role, but it's more about the WP Creative, the company asset, the company IP, intellectual
Hmm.
property, and the way we do things here could be our values, how we make decisions, and the nuances of the the company and so on.
Okay,
That is
perfect. So
definitely as a
that's
founder,
actually even
that's on me. Yeah.
better then because are you then transferring that, or is your kind of lens through which you're viewing that task? I'm going to transfer this to people instead of I'm going to transfer this to systems and processes that can output the type of person that has this information. And I'm only asking this because, like, right now, it seems like, and
Yeah.
again, it could be out of ignorance, but it's like, it seems like you are pouring a lot into the individual, which
Yeah.
obviously is important. And it's also fragile because if you're not pouring the same into a system that
Yeah.
can spit that out, then, it's as good as the person receiving it and or that person continuing to be there, right? So like it's kind of like always you got to make sure that there's some redundancy built in. Um, because I haven't heard you speak about, okay, I'm transferring
System.
how
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
about things into something that doesn't require me. So I'm just kind of curious, like
That's
what pops up
that's
with
a
that.
really good point. I have given some thought about that because um, this is a big question. This is a big question for I think any business owners, any founder as well, how to transfer that information, how to put that into the system, SOPs, and whatever we talk about. Uh, a couple of things what I found is we do have a system and those we talked about, but that has never been enough. I have built those documentation, onboarding playbook, and videos and explaining. And two things. One is keeps evolving because the business has been evolving. Business has been changing. We keep changing our like growing into the like up market and so on. So that kept changing. So there is a lot of work. I created a video, let's say 3 4 years back, and I watched. I think when I onboarded, then I was like, it doesn't reflect. That's not exactly what we do, and I had to delete all those things and now I don't have time to do those
Right.
again.
And just to pause there, just for clarification again, right? Because I love what you just
Yep.
shared. So I'm just curious, is what you created before about like, this is how we do this particular thing, this is how we
Yep.
do this to, okay. So the reason why I asked that question is a lot of what you were mentioning prior with regards to what I want to transfer over to my people, right? And you're in tech and tech changes,
Yep.
literally
Yep. Yep.
week to week, month to month,
Yep.
like it's not a yearly cycle, right? So
Yep.
when I hear you speak about, the devotion you have to your people, a lot of what comes through is like I'm trying to get them trained on how to think more like me. Like in terms of like, this is how I see the world. This is how I make decisions. This is how I use this particular tool. This is why we're using this particular tool like this. So to me, it's like part of your success. And you mentioned this at the beginning. It's like I'm a very logical person. Whenever I'm working with logical clients, they generally operate based on principles much
Yep.
less about like individual tools or because like those change literally all the time, features change all the
Yeah.
time, things
True.
get
True.
outdated very, very quickly. And the reason why I say this is if you are basing your systems off of like creating structure around what is relevant today versus thinking about creating your systems around, okay, what's the philosophy behind
Yeah.
how I do what I do? Well, what is it that I actually believe about the things, how we serve our clients,
Yeah.
why we serve them this way? What are the operating principles that I make my decisions off? I'm sure you have like kind of like, heuristics or mental
Values and all.
models
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
times to do that. So it's like, and I know it sounds like a weird thing to like train your people on, but it seems to me like what's made you successful is this is how I view the world, and then I insert whatever the new technology is to solve that particular problem. If I can teach people how to view the world like I view them, believe what I
Yeah.
believe, and think how I think, it becomes a transferable asset that then they can use their own intelligence and gifts to like
Yeah.
plug in this tool, plug in that tool. So I see you shaking your head. It's like, what's landing with all of that?
No, no, that's really good point. Look, I think I 100% agree on that. And we do have, I mean, not a per, I wouldn't say we have got a perfect those, values and vision and it's clear for everyone. But we do have values, we do have our purpose, we do have a vision which is clear, shared with the team as well, which is going for a long time. I guess I'm talking about a very one situational thing here. I'm in that situation right now. If you look at the whole business, we have got the ops department, marketing, and the ops is the biggest department. We have got 25, almost 25 people in the delivery department because that's the main chunk of work. But I was in the sales role for too long, 10 years, and that's the function I'm talking about now. But rest of the function is working really well. Where the way you explain the values and vision, this is how we make the decision, these are principles and things are already in place and which is working well. I don't have to get involved into training. Let's say that if we are hiring a front end dev, back end dev, I don't even get involved into that. Even the project manager and the operation level, and even like on the marketing and other side of HR and other things as well. But just the sales thing, I think that's the department, that's the function I was for too long, 10 years as a founder, which came from a technical background. I didn't want to do sales. I didn't want to get into the sales. Um, but I had to do it because that's the rainmaker and that's how you run the business. And without that, there was no chances to succeed. So then I moved into the sales function and I kept doing it, but I just wanted to hire, but I didn't know the sales itself because I was not trained by any sales manager. I never worked for any function. So I didn't know how to find the right person and how to train someone, which was I think now looking back, which was I think one of the biggest struggle for myself. Even though it was fun learning and those all the sales thing and so on supporting. So I think that's the individual thing. Yeah, we do have a principle. I think like the values and everything. I'm pretty much clear on that how we make decision, but there is maybe a couple of things I can reflect back and say I could have done differently. I can see that when you mentioned that thinking from the process point of view, like the system, the decision principle point of view, rather than the tool itself, I can reflect on that. But it's still, I think we do have those things in place, but it is the situation, just the particular situation where I'm onboarding two BDMs right now. They're fantastic, very much aligned with our principal values. I think this is the thing we do during the hiring phase, not after hiring. So that's why it took so long for me to find, because most of the time, just to get being more honest here, my values, most of the time, the values I bring in and the culture I was kind of building, I found it really hard to find salespeople who had similar values because completely different culture, completely different environment. Most of the SaaS hungry companies growing in a fast growing have built a different culture, and I couldn't work with that culture. But even though they were very talented people, and I hired them, and I failed many times because I couldn't work on that like that sales kind of environment because I work like more consultant and maybe I didn't know what I was looking for and how to look into those different different skill and different skill set to find it. So that's why it took so long. So I'm very big on looking at people, hiring people, onboarding someone who is aligned with the values. So that's already ticked. I don't need to go back and talk about the principle because we already did that before hiring. So that's already ticked. Now it's more about how to make them successful. Even though someone has similar values, doesn't mean they're gonna do the best. I mean, the craft and they will be succeed in the role in the new environment, new company, new team, new service, new everything is pretty much new for them. I think there are those things around, but I think I can't take too much credit for that supporting them because they're expert. They have been doing for so long and they are a lot better than me in terms of sales. I know nothing compared to them. I only know about WP Creative because that's the company I founded. So I'm the only one person who knows how things work here and how we make decisions. But they're a lot experienced than me. They're doing a lot better than me in terms of the sales call. When I joined, I learned probably more as well rather than helping them. So I can't take too much credit, but it's still, again, this is my house. and they don't know this place, and this is my responsibility to help them succeed on that. So that's the kind of the pressure, I maybe a little bit of pressure you can feel, that I need to make them successful because I did everything to choose the right people, and they're the right people. And if they don't succeed, it's not up to them, it's up to me because I didn't help them enough to make them successful. And that's the, I guess, the pressure, accountability, I don't know, whatever that is. There could be maybe I'm taking over. I don't know. That's why maybe you will see more
No, that's
in that.
I appreciate you sharing that because it's a very real situation that so many founders, business owners get into, which is like, that chicken before the egg problem, right? Like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
can come first, etc. And I got to juggle both in order to move
yeah,
to the next phase. So I know I said this at the beginning, and I think it's still kind of true. I think like you are in the chapter that you are in, and that chapter necessitates a certain level of output and doing things that I think, you would rather not be doing. But it's kind of like that's the price of admission for being, who you're being, right? And
yeah,
I stress that again, not to just repeat the point, but just to invite you to like, it's like if I'm climbing a mountain and the mountain is like a hard climb, me judging myself for climbing a hard mountain isn't really going to help the situation. Like it's not going to make the situation
no,
easier. It's not going to make the climb any smoother. All that's really going to do is kind of like add more of that mental, emotional pressure onto what it is that I'm already doing. Right now, I know that's easier said
yeah,
than done, which is why you sometimes just need the obvious like reflected back to you, right? And it's the same thing. It's like, you can't see the building when you're standing on the balcony, right? Like I know these things seem obvious, and I oftentimes say, like even working with
yeah,
clients, I'm
true,
like 50% of my job is just reminding smart people of things that they've already forgotten. You know what I mean? And like, but that's the piece that I think is at the theme of everything from like your assessment to like all of this. It's like I'm judging myself more harshly than I need to versus just accepting like in this stage right now, like this is hard, parts of it suck, and okay, cool. Like then I'm just gonna roll with every day, like knowing that this is going to be hard. It's like if I step out into the rain and I'm like, it shouldn't be raining right now, it should be like sunny. It's like that whole idea, like when you argue with reality, you only lose 100% of the time, right? So there's no need to argue with the reality that like in this chapter, this is hard and like that's okay. I'm clearly doing all the things that I need to do because I'm seeing evidence that it's moving. So just give it its, time and grace to kind of move forward. But
true.
I know it seems like a simple quote unquote
I
solution
like how you
to it,
said
but
it. No, I like that example, mountain example as well. And look, I think being a founder, I think it is pretty much the same case for every entrepreneur who starts the business. Not easy. You know one craft, and you think you can do really build a business. Building a business, knowing a craft is completely opposite, but we don't know that when we start. We think I know I can solve one problem, and that means I can build a business, which is completely wrong. I mean, reflecting back, I can see that. And I was in the same board, which is completely wrong analogy, wrong assumption that I can build a business, and which I think is not a bad thing as well, because I didn't want to be in the sales role. I didn't want to do the marketing. I was a tech guy. I used to love coding. I used to build website, but then I had to leave that because to run the business, I had to sacrifice something. So the point is, I did for like almost 10 years think that I didn't want to do it, but I kept doing to keep, bring business to this point. So doing this, like this chapter, I didn't even think from that point of view until I did the reflection, like where I'm wasting time, where I'm overworking. I didn't even like as you mentioned, like climbing. When you're climbing the mountain, just think about the mountain, not why I'm here, why am I doing this. So it didn't come to me. Look, I was more excited to. I guess I'm every day I'm excited to support them rather than think, oh, like I didn't want to do this. Maybe some of the calls I don't want to join this because just to give you more example, I want them to learn even though I know the prospect is not qualified. And we talked about qualifying in more because I want them to learn from those opportunities. And I was joining those calls, and I know this is not the room I want to be in because I know this is not the client we can help. But still, I'm there, and maybe those things I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it. I was not expecting to do it, but I had to do it. Like being in a room where I don't want to be, Other than that, I think as you mentioned, like I know I'm climbing a mountain and this is the situation I signed up for. There is no point to complain about that and say like, oh, and I don't want to do it. And I never thought about that on like until this reflection, going into detail and but which is back of our head, we know some of the things we don't want to do it, but we still have to do it because we are accountable. For example, sometimes in the parenting, looking after your kids, and I know you don't want to wake up early and they're sick or something goes wrong. You don't complain about that. You just have to do it. Take
Yeah.
the extreme ownership of that. Exactly. I think I relate to it because I've got two young kids. I relate to parenting and business in many ways, like maybe 90% overlap. It's the same thing. Take the extreme ownership of your situation and you're the parent and the business as well.
Yeah. Well, given like so we have a toddler. He's just gonna be two in about a month. So
Okay.
I understand
You're
that
in trenches
sentiment
as well.
very,
I've got a
very well.
three and four and a
Yeah.
half. So yeah.
Very, very, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
but
mean,
the
listen,
just to
yeah,
sum up that, like the parenting is something where inherently, like biologically, everyone gets it, and everyone takes the ownership and accountability of their own kids because no, they know they're the only one person in the world who is accountable and who can save them, who can make them alive and whatever fulfill their needs. But when it comes to the business, we don't have maybe many people don't have the same mindset that they're the only people who need to take their look after their take the ownership of the team and but it's the same thing in many ways. I think maybe you could see that I'm taking too much pressure, but I think I feel that is a self-awareness kind of tool. I need to take the responsibility of the team. um, it's the same thing as the parenting.
I would 100% agree. And just to add nuance to your share, I don't think you are necessarily having too much responsibility. I think the way you speak about it is very mature. I think it's like you're taking ownership, right? Like what you mentioned with the kids, what you're mentioning with like I'm taking ownership of the good and the bad, and I know it's my responsibility because I chose to have the kid, I chose to have the business. Like these are very mature choices of ownership. The only nuance that I would add to that is when the volume of that gets too high, then it distorts it into guilt. And it's like that guilt and shame is not necessary. And that's kind of what I was getting at to give yourself grace of like,
Yeah,
this is a hard chapter. I don't need to listen to this at this volume. Like it's totally okay if it's like lower and I'm just like going with what is in front of me, right? So it's less a I need to change something dynamic as much as it is I just need to not have it be as loud. Like I'm overcorrecting and it's
yeah.
not necessary.
One of the lines I always I like, and I even say to the team as well is, like in the plain example, first look after yourself, put master yourself, then to others. When I'm in the down moment, like I'm doing too much for others, and I'm just kind of exhausted, and I think about that as well. I need to look after myself. If I think this is a perfect example I learned after having kids is, if I'm not in the best mood and I don't have, then I can't make them happy because I don't have the happiness within me. I'm empty. So if I'm not full of energy, if I'm not up, if I'm down, then I will make them down. There is no way when you can't give something you don't have. So I think going back to the example, the mask example is a really good one. I think about that when I'm overworking. Let's say I'm joining, let's say 10 meetings in a day, and I say to them, look, I can't do this. I need to skip like, give me like five, maybe two or three that I have to join, which you think can help you. Others like, I need to skip that, which I'm trying to do as well. Um, yeah, I guess it's a finding a balance and knowing when you're overdoing is important. Is
100%.
very, very important. But sometimes we are in the trenches and we think we don't have a choice.
And I think, yeah, that's always, where you want the outside perspective. Because, like I said, and I say this
Exactly.
all the time, right? You can't see the building when you're on the balcony. That's a
I like
totally
that
different
analogy.
conversation, right? So, yeah. So, listen, I think if there's nothing else that you feel like is outstanding that like I can help you with, I think it's kind of like we found what the linchpin of this whole thing is. I think it's just kind of that invitation towards grace. So I'll leave it up to you. Like, is there something else that?
I think there was one more thing you mentioned, and I think I saw that in the list as well. I don't know if you can help me with that. This is one question I've been thinking about for some time, but I haven't been able to get to the point to answer. I think the point I'm looking into the assessment was around the confrontation, avoiding confrontation. I have been reflecting on that, being self-aware. What I found is, even with my kids as well. What I found is I'm more like a non-confrontational. Could be going back to the way I grew up and our kids. I don't know when this happened, how this happened, why this happened. I don't have any answer. I haven't found the answer. But I found in many different situations where kind of the danger situation, you choose fight or flight. I found I'm more on the non-confrontational side of thing. If someone is putting it too much pressure, like putting me on the spot to make decision, like a tough decision, I'm like, I can't make a decision. I would pick rather flight mode. The way I think is I want to step back. I want to reflect. I want to think. I want to slip on it and then come back and make a decision. This is the kind of mentality I have built for so long. But if someone puts me on the spot, I don't have a choice. Then I think I would pick maybe more polite response. Even with our kids, so we have got two kids. One is a more confrontational, and another is a very non-confrontational. I can see that one is very kind of gets into the when there is a situation, she gets into the fight more. Like I'm gonna fight back, and she will do everything to get what she wants. Or maybe her natural response is more on the fight as well in the danger situation. Another is a kind of flight. She goes back and cries. I find it more easy to deal with the person who is on a flight mode. And I was reflecting, what is going on here? I'm a non-confrontational. I know, like, I don't know the reason why I'm like that. And in many situations, for example, if client goes, if there was a complaint, I was reflecting maybe 4 or 5 years back as well. If client was complaining, I don't feel good to jump on a call directly and put my point. No, 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 you're wrong. Like I'm right, or maybe no, no, I can help you. Whatever. Just get into that kind of situation. I would prefer to sit back and just think and say, look, what else we can do. And maybe and I realize ended up doing email than the call rather than meeting someone because maybe I feel more safe around that. And maybe that's the natural response. And that's what I was reflecting on. I don't know the answer. I was thinking, is that a natural biological wiring thing that you can't change? Because my response is a flight. I'm a Nirmal is a flight, non-confrontational thing. Or is that something, from what I said, is that something you can overcome or is net necessary to overcome? Because there are, I mean, three responses, but usually I guess there are two responses, like the natural responses. It is what it is. How do you see that?
Okay. So, A, thank you for pointing that out and actually asking because this is extremely common in a lot of ironically, it happens with every single tech entrepreneur that I've worked with that this kind of thing pops up, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I think that's okay. I'll go on a tangent right now and I'll bring it back to your question. But I think
Yeah.
it's because whenever I'm working with what I call head heavy people, so meaning individuals that have succeeded because of their intelligence, they tend to be very strong in what I call neck up. So your
Mm,
gift and your abilities to navigate conceptually, intellectually, to make decisions, to think things through, super high. Neck down, the emotional sensation aspects of my being, I tend to put aside because not only does it get in the way of me using my gift, but it oftentimes leads me into bad situations that I don't really want to be in. Okay. Now, there are times when that is good, and there are also times that that costs you quite a bit. Okay. So put that as the context of the question, right? So you asked multiple different questions, one of which was like, is this something that is kind of like set in stone that I have to just learn to live with, or is it something I can transcend? So my short answer to that is you can transcend it for the reason that I just mentioned, which is you basically you're very proficient at the cognitive, logical language. you are not as proficient in the neck down emotional language, which is where the reaction you are talking about, I avoid confrontation, actually lives, right? Because intellectually, what I'm hearing is like in that example with like customer has a complaint, the complaint is somewhat warranted, but I'd rather just avoid it, send an email, or see how we can just make them happy. Okay, cool. That is one way to navigate around it, and clearly you've done that successfully multiple times. And if like something actually needs addressing directly, and or it would be faster to address it directly, and or all the other reasons of why you would want to confront something directly, that hesitation is first and foremost emotional. Like it is not a logical reaction. So the transcending is going to involve basically learning a whole new different way of relating to yourself. Okay. Now, when you say, okay, normally there's like fight or flight, I tend to take flight. Describe to me more of what that is actually like for you.
For example, if someone wants to, let's say, could be the person who is more on the fight mode. Let's say someone's reaction is a fight. I want to resolve now. I want to do this now, or let's, do this now. Like, no, I'm like, I don't want to argue. I didn't feel arguing at that moment. And my response is, look, not that this is a danger. I mean, this is not going to result into constructive end. And my response is, look, I have to run from here. I mean, this is what not physically what I do. This is what I feel. I don't want to be in this situation right now, trying to resolve with this person who is in a fight mode. I would rather go back and think about it and come back. Because I want to think with the fresh mind. I think a couple of things aligns I think about is don't make your decision invalid. I mean, when things are wrong, this is not the time to make a decision or get into the argument. So I guess mostly happens with these when the other person is in a fight response,
Hmm.
not the situation itself. If there is no, let's say there is a situation, house is on fire, whatever, no one is in a, if I can deal with that, maybe I don't get into the flight situation for that. It's more about dealing with people situation than the situation itself,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
So if it's there is a sense of, and I'll use this term broadly, there's a sense of aggression
Yeah,
in the interaction. I My system says I don't want to actually be here, right? So
yeah.
I look for ways to not be here. Okay. Now, do you always leave when that happens?
That's a good question. Depends on the situation. Look, I think no, I don't. I try. Maybe look, I think what you said is kind of I find it hard to process that emotion myself. Maybe labeling that and process the emotion. I didn't feel good. I would say I would put that way. I don't live physically now. Um, I try, but I don't feel good.
Okay, perfect.
I feel like this is not like good. I don't want to be this season. This is not going to end well, whatever that
Yes.
could be.
So when you don't feel good and you have to stay, like I'm talking to whatever,
Yeah,
client, vendor, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
They're clearly upset. If I just leave, that's going to make it worse. So I choose to stay. It doesn't feel good inside. I don't want to be here. What do you end up doing in the situation? Do you kind of say, I agree, I will get back to you tomorrow. Let me think on this. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Like, what is your go-to
I
for
think
all of that?
what you said there is upset. If someone is upset, I don't think that's a danger situation for me. If the client is upset, if someone is, saying, "Oh, there is the situation," if the situation is bad, I think my response is not a flight. If the client is upset, my response is not flight. Um, I'm there to confront thing. I think I can maybe relate back to kids, which makes it easier. If one of the kids, which is she's into fight, like I want that, whatever she's crying, I mean, or maybe she didn't like something, something happened there, something she dropped a glass and it just broke, and she doesn't know how to process the emotion. Now she's kind of wants to fight with me. because and she will blame me, you did this, like you broke it, not me, whatever. She doesn't know how to process that situation at the moment. One of my daughter's response is fight. She will fight, maybe she will throw another thing, but another's response is she will go to the corner and she will start crying. I don't have a problem with the situation itself. I think I have a problem with dealing with different fight and flight responses. And if it is a fight, I don't know how to deal with that. If
Yeah.
it is a flight, I'm really calm person. I'm so easy. I've got so much empathy and I go and help the person and I'm good. But when there is a fight, I think for a moment, it's not for a long time as well. Because my brain is, I guess, hijacked at the same time as well because there is a danger. There are two dangers going on. One is a glass is just glass broke. I don't know how to deal with that. And another is the my golly, like the daughter is fighting with me, blaming me, trying to do more destruction. And at that point in time, my brain is like, how to process that? And the natural response, I get into the fight as well, but I don't want to get into the fight. And that's what I feel like I get the conflict. Could go back to the client. If the client is, let's say, the site is down, hacked, crashed. But the client calls me and says, Nirmal, we're in the situation. Like, what should we do? That's a really good question. I'm really good. I don't have problem with the situation. But if the client goes like, he starts pointing finger and saying, you did this, I'm gonna crush you. I'm gonna take your business down. I'm gonna sue you. For example, I don't know how to respond to that.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, from that point of view, I'm not confrontational. I'm
So
gonna
it's
say, look,
not the
no.
situation per se, it is when the intensity of the other person is directed at me, not it's
And
if it's directed at the
I take the
situation, I'm okay.
flight. Yeah.
But if it's at me, then I sh and it's asking me like more like you start to shut down versus I
Yeah.
flight. Is that more
Um,
accurate?
I haven't felt it that way. I don't know. Maybe I haven't think deeper. What does the freeze response look like? And I need to maybe be more mindful
That's
and
okay. I
see
mean, th
next
those are
time. But
nuances, but
more, I think, like I felt more like a flight. I don't want to be here.
yeah, that's fine. I get that. Okay. So I'll go with the some reflections on the uh kid side of things because I think it's a more visceral example. So oftentimes, anger is going to be the shield that hurt wears. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Oftentimes, when especially kids who don't have the capacity to, like, they're just literally like learning and wiring their brain to deal with these things. So they don't have the ability, oftentimes, to process these things uh, as we hopefully have as adults. Anger will oftentimes be the shield that hurt wears. So if somebody feels hurt, but they don't know how to handle their own hurt, they will lash out because it's easier to project
Yeah.
at somebody else, right? Because, and again, I know I'm just
Yeah.
going off of one example, and this is not at all
Yeah.
any commentary or judgment on your parenting. I'm just taking it as a concept and commenting on that,
Yeah.
right? But you're like, when the other child who tends to be more just, I need to go by myself, I need to cry, etc. Oh, I know how to deal with that. And basically what I heard was, I know how to go there, I know how to comfort them. Okay. So actively, my caretaker is now coming in to soothe, to help me co-regulate whatever the bad situation actually is. Now, when anger is interrupting that piece, right? The child could be like, well, there's something like I don't like the fact that I broke this thing, but I don't know what to deal with it. So like you
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
I see you doing it to the other kid. Like, why can't you do it? You know, like now it becomes, it's actually a cry for help that ends up being spilled towards you, right? And if your own nervous system doesn't know how to deal with that particular situation, well, this is more like the mammalian brain. Like it doesn't feel safe. Like if my caretaker
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't know how to
Yeah.
deal with this, well,
100%.
then
Yeah.
like I'm not going to know how to deal with this, right? So like it's one of those tricky
True.
things. It creates a cycle, right? Where
Yeah.
it's very hard to regulate somebody in a space where you yourself don't know how to be in, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
it's a technical reflection of that particular situation. Now, if we take that more broadly, how was your own anger treated growing up?
That's the thing. I think I haven't been able to reflect exactly to find those answers. I don't recall being angry, but I can recall. um, people being angry. I mean, not responding in a nice way. Maybe look, that was the only reflection I thought. Look, maybe that's what I
Okay.
saw.
And just to
Like
maybe ask a
my
different
senior
way,
years. Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
was your intensity? So whenever you got intense, how did your caretakers respond
I
to it?
might have, look, from what I know, I might have suppressed that emotion because everyone, like my mom and everyone said I was a really calm kid, but that could be a problem.
Yeah.
So
So I think that the key there is
maybe they labeled me calm most of the time, and that's why I kept suppressing to keep my identity for so long.
that's
I
definitely
don't
part of
know.
it. Yes. And again, we don't have to get into like the specifics
Yeah.
of fear, like all of
Yeah.
that. What I will reflect back on is like if I saw a lot of volatility growing up, volatility for young kids is extremely dangerous because
Okay.
the reason they
What do you
like
mean by volatility? Yeah.
volatility meaning like I don't know when somebody's going to blow up. And when they
Oh
blow
yeah.
up, shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not fun,
Yeah.
right? So like if and again, I'm gonna go general now, like but like when I have clients
Yeah.
or people like if they have there was like a lot of chaos in the household. Like you
Yeah.
don't know when somebody's going to like blow up. And when they blow up, there's a lot of yelling. This doesn't feel good and it's like unpredictable. Okay. So that's like one
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah.
The other scenario is oftentimes like when that does happen, the person that is like my
Having.
rock
Yeah.
has to deal with it. So then I make the conclusion if I go into that intensity, then I'm adding more pressure to my like one core caretaker or whatever. So I don't want to be that person. So like you said, then I suppress that. And
Yeah.
oftentimes the suppression of anger intensity means it's something that we don't allow within ourselves. If we don't allow within ourselves, it's going to be very hard to then deal with it another one. So I would guess the origin aspect of that is somewhere there, right? Like I said, we don't have to get into the details
Yeah,
of it.
of course, of course.
And
No, that was the
yeah,
example. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're talking about the business context. Just to go back, the confrontational thing. Is there a correlation between what we just talked about and the confrontational, avoiding confrontational? I take off there. Is there a correlation there?
110% because your
Okay,
nervous system
okay,
doesn't care. Like
okay.
it's like if this one situation, it's like if somebody scared me with a rubber snake and I
Yeah,
was like deadly afraid, I thought I was gonna die, then anything that resembles that snake is gonna trigger a response,
yeah, okay.
right? Like now I
Yeah,
logically understand that these two have nothing to do with each other, but it's kind of
yeah,
like your
yeah.
the primal part of
Yeah,
yourself
it's kind
doesn't
of
really
your
care, right?
response is the same. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this is a
That is
very
kind of you. Yeah.
similar cycle in that it's your nervous
Is
system
it
doesn't care.
is it a wiring thing, or is it a kind of emotional processing your emotion? You don't know how to process in that situation, or you're wired to act in a such a way because it has been. Um,
In essence, it is both. Like
but I can.
what I embody is essentially what I repeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I have practiced is what is embodied in my body.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So if for decades I have avoided intensity, confrontation, anger, and I've successfully avoided it by steering away from it, delaying it,
Right.
sending emails versus talking, like that is just more reinforcement. So going into wiring that this part of me isn't safe and this is how I stay safe. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
it is basically this like it's emotional and it's wiring because it's been repeated and it is also not permanent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You could
what we are
be more
going with right
mindful in that
now, yeah,
situation.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, look, one of the things I'm practicing with my daughter as well, just to go back on that example, is be mindful of that situation. And sometimes, like, it gets worse with kids, like just 1 minute, that's all it takes. If you can take a long, deep breath for 1 minute and just calm down, then your mind is back and you can look after them, which I'm practicing as well. But going back to your example of the email and in the business context, look, I'm still reflecting because when you start the business, you face so many challenges and issues. I'm reflecting now. Is that because I had a bad situation? Could be in a personal life, could have been in the business, where I tried to be confrontational, like but it didn't work. But maybe it worked against me. It didn't, and then I kind of build the resentment. Oh, look, I don't want to do that again, and I will go back to that. Or could be going back to my childhood where I was kind of suppressed my emotion And that way, that worked for me. And that became my identity because everyone praised Nirmal as a calm person. He's a calm kid. He's so good. And I had to keep that calmness identity just to get that, I guess, reward. I don't know. I haven't reflected too much on
Yeah.
that.
So, I mean, in that instance, it's like my caregivers give me praise, validation, worthiness when I act this way, right? And that was part of my
Yeah,
programming growing up as well. It's like you get really good like results if you are a good kid, right? Now, that was great
yeah,
with regards to like my parents approved of that. But then the cost of that is there's a lot of self-expression, self-exploration that you don't do because you're basing it
because
off
you
of
want to
what
maintain.
are my caretakers actually going to
Uh,
approve of or not approve of. So you lose like the cost of that is
yeah,
you gain stability, but at the expense of your own exploration of who you actually are, what you like, what you don't like, how you actually want to be. Because there's
yeah,
lots of
yeah,
times where like intensity is needed, not just for the situation, but
exactly.
also for your own discharging, right? Like it also
Yeah,
means suppression. You gotta like harbor a lot of stored emotions that never had a release valve. Okay. Over time, that will, it could be
true.
physical ailments, could be emotional things, could be nervous. Like there's so many things it could like spiral into that, we don't need to get into like right now. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying is like the way out of what it is that you are describing is you have a very pretty good like intellectual understanding of it. So not much to do there. And that's what I was saying. Like generally neck up people, neck
yeah,
like mentally strong people, the mindset piece, the understanding piece comes very quickly.
yeah,
What this really comes down to is two
yeah,
things. Emotionally understanding the like subconscious emotional conflicts within you. So there's a part of you right now that is still operating in that frozen state of I need to be a good boy. And then therefore, this is how
oh
I
yeah,
act in the world versus I'm an actual adult and I can do XYZ thing. So there's an emotional conflict happening that way. And
that's a
then
good
the
one.
deeper layer of that is the unconscious, which is your nervous system layer. This is where you
uh,
have to train your capacity to be with these intense emotions and learn how anger can actually be safe. Meaning,
yeah,
like, I can be in these environments, in these situations, and actually feel like I don't have to run from here, right? Like I
yeah,
can actually invoke that natural fight response as well, right? Because you're going to use that ethically. So that's obviously, beyond the scope of like this, and it's not going to be a one session thing anyway, but like that's really the
yeah,
path for you. And this is what I was telling at the beginning of this whole kind of move into this conversation is right now you don't speak a language that is required for you to solve this, right? Very
mm,
good up
yeah,
here, but it's this like neck down language
yeah.
that really is where this whole thing lies. So I know that was a lot thrown your way. Like what lands with
No,
that?
yeah. No, that's a really good one. That's a good example. I guess that's the part of the learning as well. And the change doesn't happen overnight. I mean, logically, you could know, oh, look, this is the emotion, this is the thing, I was not doing it, but you're wired. I mean, it's emotional thing, and which is takes a lot of, I guess, experiences, good experiences, and things to change your wiring, which is I have been trying to rewire a lot of things in the past as well. I mean, been practicing and see, look, but once you be aware, makes it a lot easier.
Correct. Well,
Once
awareness
you're
is always the
aware,
first
like,
step, right? Like you can't change what you can't see. Awareness
but
is the
once you become
key.
aware, like why you're acting this way, like what is the response? Am I doing flight or fight? If I have been constantly doing fight response, then I know, okay, okay. Then once I become aware, then it makes it a lot easier to change because now I'm exposed. My emotion is exposed. I mean, I don't know what is the exactly nervous system exposed, but if something is exposed, and when it is exposed, then it will calm down. It will just stop acting the same way as well. But that was a really good finding. I think that was a good, reflection to. I haven't done that before. Going back to my kids and how I used to behave.
Awesome. Well, yeah, no, all good. I'm glad that resonates with you. So I just want to be conscious of time to make sure we're good for that. So Anything else around that? And then if not, we can kind of move towards a close. So any kind of lasting
I think
things
it
that you
was
have
good.
questions around?
Uh, no, I think it was a really good session. Look, maybe the last thing out of, I know it's just 1 hour talk. You don't know me and there are nuances and other things that is going on. Is there anything you would, as a therapist, is there anything you would suggest to me? Maybe one thing that is going to practice every day or to do like that is gonna make a bigger impact from what you know so far.
100%. So, and this kind of go back to, and I'll repeat the same thing with a bit of a different context. So, understanding things is not really going to move the needle for you. Like, is not going to move the needle forward for you that much. And I say this because, again, you understand things quickly, you get it, you see the patterns, you see how things connect. That comes like very, very easily for you. Okay. So if you want to move the needle forward on these things, my suggestion is to be looking into like especially nervous system practices. Okay. And then there's like a whole long list of those and like when do you apply them, etc. I think in general, from what you're describing, the freeze response and understanding how to get out of the freeze response is much more valuable to you than the flight because flight responses tend to actually be like I run away. Like flight responses is, oh, my daughter's like yelling at me. I'm gonna go to the other room. Right. But it's like, no, no, like I stay, but then there's this inner kind of like I don't want to be here feeling.
Mm,
Generally, that is associated with what is called like a functional freeze. I'm still able to operate in the world, but like internally, it feels like nobody can tell from the outside looking in, but internally, it's like hardcore panic mode. Okay. So there are different exercises to do for that than there are for like traditional, fight, flight, arousal, etc. So really that like if you're gonna be investing into like, okay, how do I like navigate out of this? That's the first place that I would look into, right? So things like The Body Keeps the Score, which is a book, Awakening the Tiger, also the book like that's the kind of material that I would be consuming because that's where you're going to get a lot more progress than just understanding. Understanding is what I call like making a higher resolution problem. And basically it's like if I ask you, okay, draw me a house and you draw a square with a triangle on top, you put doors, windows, I'm like, it's a house. Like it's like basic house. But then you started drawing, projection lines, you made it 3D, you started shading it, you added colors, you added a lawn, you put in a background. I'm like, it's more beautiful, it has higher resolution, but it's still a house. And what I find is oftentimes like smart people will spend years circling around a problem doing that very thing, right? Like I just understand the history of my fight or flight response as it relates to conflict deeper and deeper. And I've found out this connection. I found like that's all good and has its time and place and it is relevant. But at some point when you know, like, okay, this is what
gotcha.
this is, I'd rather just like move out of this pattern and transcend it. Then we got to get you don't need to paint deeper pictures of it. Like you got to actually start work, and that's a full contact sport. I got to be in there with the feelings. I got to know how to breathe through situations. I got to know how to like move my body through these situations so my body feels safe. I got to know how to like orient so that I'm seeing that this is not a threatening situation. Like there's a lot of different aspects to that, but long story short, and it was kind of a non-answer. It's like more understanding of like the history isn't necessarily going to move the needle as much as deeper understanding of how to work with your body to not be under threat in what is logically like non-safety threatening situations. So, does that answer your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think, yeah, knowing things, I think you put it a really good way. Knowing things is not going to move the needle. At the same time, I guess is still knowing how to take action and focusing on the right thing. I guess you mentioned a couple of books, which I haven't read. I guess that is again, and I was thinking like you mentioned book, but that's again knowing things. That's not acting on it because you're listening to book and you're improving your knowledge the above your neck. I guess there are maybe there are practical examples where you could practice as well. I guess that's what you're referring. Build the knowledge and use that knowledge to practice and improve, not just have just knowledge and be the smartest person in the
Correct.
room.
And to just kind of make that distinction, because you are accurate. Like again, reading more will kind of fall into that category. So going back to the analogy of reading or learning a different language, if I'm consuming material on how do I get better at speaking this language, and then I go and I practice the things to like speak this language better, that's actually improving the thing that I actually need to do, which is like speak this language. But if I'm reading
Yeah.
books on like why would it be great to learn this language? How did this language come to be? Then it's like, well, I'm not actually, or I'm just like learning random vocabulary words. It's like, oh, I know the
Yeah.
language better, but like I don't have any practical way to like use it. Then it's no good, right? So like that's kind of
Yeah.
people will
That's
get
the
into
distinction
these
between,
like
yeah.
self-development loops, therapy loops, and I've been guilty of this as well, where it's just like you just keep going deeper and deeper. It's like there's always something new to explore. Oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. Oh yeah, really like okay, cool. And if your day-to-day life isn't really better, then you're probably not allocating your resources in the best way possible, right? So good question, and that's the distinction that I would make, right? And why I recommend those
Yeah.
books is like
Yeah.
those books would begin to teach you the things around like the language you actually learn have to learn to speak to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
embody out of these patterns.
I guess that's a really good point because I'm a book reader. I read a lot of books. The fine line between sometimes you don't know what you don't know. For example, if you don't know about the emotions and all these different, the emotions and the nervous system, then you don't know. Then you don't know how to take action, how to improve. First, then the confusion. I think I have been into that confusion as well when reading like leadership books and all these things. They sound really good, and that gives me knowledge. But after 1 month, there's nothing. What was the takeaway? When I read that book, I feel like I'm the best leader and I know everything. I can do it. After 1 month, what was the takeaway from that book? I don't know. Did I do anything? Maybe I tried, but it didn't. I didn't get into the deeper because that's the top level
Right. And it goes
knowledge.
back to embodiment, right? What we practice is what we embody,
Yeah,
right? So that's what you
I guess. Yeah,
practice,
that's where.
intellectual
Yeah,
learning
yeah,
is what I embody. I understand things very well, and I'm still always feeling bad whenever somebody confronts me. Okay,
yeah,
cool. Right. Like that's kind of the, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not even a judgment call. Like I've been there, many of my clients have been there. It's just like, welcome to being human. But the way out is like
yeah,
that embodiment piece. So,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
Welcome to Human is a
I
good line.
do,
Yep,
because I do have a hard stop with regards
yep,
to
sure.
this. Want to make sure we do. So, anything else before I let you go?
Now, thank you. It was a really good session.
Awesome. You're very welcome. So, yeah, why don't you then move us to a close with letting everybody know, where to find you, who's the best person to find you, like floor is yours for all of that.
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here. Look, I run a company called WP Creative. That's where, and I'm active on LinkedIn, Nirmal Ganwali. You can look into that, and wpcreative.com.au is the website. Yeah, that's where I'm active.
Okay, awesome. Well, as always, we'll include that in the show notes. And then Nirmal, thank you very much for being on here, having a great discussion about all these things, sharing your, examples and all of that. Like I said, it does take a certain level of vulnerability and courage to do that. So thank you for that. And to whoever's listening, thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.